tonight's Vanderbilt University School of Engineering's graduate program conversation hour. It is my pleasure to introduce our two guests that will be joining us tonight. So for this session, we'll be featuring our Masters of Engineering in Engineering Management, which is an online program that we have here in engineering. So just to start off, my name is Gabriel Luis. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruiting and the Assistant Dean for Graduate Education here at the School of Engineering at Vanderbilt University. So I welcome all of you who are joining us tonight from every corner of the world. Welcome. And just to let you know that, throughout today's conversation, if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to send them into the chat, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible throughout tonight's session. In addition, you will be receiving a link, which is for registering to learn more about our graduate programs here in engineering. So once you receive that link, go ahead. If you haven't done so already, you can fill it out, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then from there, I'll be able to follow up with you after tonight's session. All right, so let's go ahead and we will start tonight's event. So what I'll do is I'll have both guests, if you want to give me a brief introduction, so I'll just call on your name, and if you just want to tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there. So first of all, let's start out with Kaileif.
Hi, thanks. So Kaileif Mitchell, I have 20 to 25 years of experience in highly technological fields. I'm a systems engineer with a small company, KMS Solutions, up here in Newport, Rhode Island. I actually live in Plymouth, Massachusetts, but it's a small company that does cybersecurities and cyber solutions for defense contracting. I'm also a reservist in the Navy Reserves. I'm a senior chief, and I work with NavAir Reserve Program at the NavAir headquarters as the acting command master chief in that role. And I have just over 20 years experience in that reserve capacity. I spent roughly 20 or 22 years with my undergraduate, which I got from Liberty University in aviation, computational sciences, and business. I have an associate's degree in avionics, aviation, electrical, mechanical technologies. I have a minor in Christian ministries, and then I graduated last year from Vanderbilt in the online Masters in Engineering and Engineering Management program that we're highlighting tonight.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Kaileif, for that introduction. Next up, Mirage.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here. So my name's Mirage Hamdy. I'm from Katy, Texas originally, but right now I'm based out in Dallas, Texas. So my background is really in technology. I have an undergraduate degree in industrial engineering from UTA. And then I just recently graduated this August with my Master of Engineering and Engineering Management from Vanderbilt's program. I'm really passionate about technology and communication. When I am in a place that has both of them, I really thrive. So I've held a bunch of different positions in the technology field. Right now, I'm focused in the UX space. So really excited to kind of tap into that creative side. And then just kind of on the side, I'm really excited about any initiative that really has anything for tech for social good. There's a lot that we can do with the technology that we have today. But yeah, really excited to be here today.
All right, excellent. Thank you both for your introductions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll pose the first question. And feel free, obviously, we want both your insights. So whoever wants to decide to answer first, I'll kind of leave it up to you in terms of answering the questions. So the first question is, for a student that's thinking about doing an online master's program, and going, back to school, getting a graduate degree and doing a master's of engineering. So first of all, kind of tell me a little bit about kind of your story to how you wound up, deciding to apply to a, master's program at Vanderbilt.
I can start with that one if you want, unless Mirage, you want to go first?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So as I said, I spent 22 years, 6 different institutions, a lot of online hybrid courses, kind of coming to finish up that undergraduate level program. And I knew immediately that if I let it stop, that I know myself well enough that I probably wouldn't jump right back into it. And for those that do take a long time off and then get back into it, I applaud you. Absolutely. That's an accomplishment in and of itself. But I knew that if I didn't continue on, I would I would probably regret it. So I had actually applied to another program at Liberty where I had graduated with my bachelor's and didn't get accepted. And so, kind of half out of irritants and half out of, just the name and the clout that Vanderbilt brings with it. I was like, I'm going to show them. And I applied. And sure enough, the next day I got a call and they're like, hey, your background looks like you're right up our alley. I think we could definitely get you into this program. I was like, are you sure? Because I just applied to one and I kind of thought this was like almost like a dream or so sure enough, obviously I did end up getting accepted to the program, but super easy to get into it. And like I said, I was very excited to receive that call the next morning. Surprised but excited.
Yeah, and I would definitely say for me, like before I even finished undergraduate, I knew I wanted to get my master's degree. Just a point of when and where was really the question. And then COVID really hit, and I think it was just a natural transition for a lot of people in the workforce who hadn't already gotten a master's degree to start looking into them. So that kind of pressure was like, okay, well, I got a lot more free time, and so I really wanted to look for programs. And like I said, I'm based in Dallas, so I just didn't want to be limited to programs that were only in Dallas. So that's when I started looking online, and I found Vanderbilt's program, which really matched a lot of what I was looking for. So that's how it worked out for me. I wanted to take advantage of the COVID time, and thankfully I was able to do everything online.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's just a great point on the COVID mention, because, I say it to people all the time, like COVID gave everybody something. For me, it gave me, I live an hour and a half, so 3 hours round trip from where I work. And so for me, it was like 3 hours more of time at home. So that's how I was able to, in, very short time, finish up that bachelor's degree and jump right into the master's degree. And, like I said, the having been through so many different institutions, the use of access here at Vanderbilt, the hybrid aspect of it being actual, like your in-person classes are on video. So you're actually interacting and networking and doing all the things that Vanderbilt is so well known for, was huge for me.
And I think, though, that's a really good point that both of you bring up in terms of the accessibility to doing an online master's program. And I think in part, COVID had something to do with that. And I think there was also trends even prior to COVID that were kind of going in that direction of making education more accessible to the masses. And I guess my question kind of on that same point is, if it wasn't for this online, program, would you even consider applying to Vanderbilt, or maybe even moving to Nashville to do a master's program, or perhaps try something that was more kind of, hybrid, or more kind of like an executive MBA where you fly in on weekends and then, fly out? How did the online component really, how decisive was it in your decision making to want to actually follow through and come and study in our program?
I think for me, it really played a huge factor. I'm really lucky that I'm young and single. I don't really have a lot of family to worry about. So if I wanted to up and move for my own education, it wouldn't be as hard or as big of a deal for some other people. So I think that was a really big selling point for a lot of people in my cohort, the ability to not have to live in Nashville and get a degree from a really prestigious university. I think that's the hardest part about going to a school with a big brand name that people always wish to go to, is that sometimes you're just not able to move to that state. So I think with the online program, it gave us both the name and the ability to stay where we are. So I really enjoyed it, but I do wish I could have gone in person. So maybe that would have been a whole new adventure for me.
Yeah, Mirage and I had an opportunity to talk about this a couple weeks back now. And, where she's young and single, I am not young or single. And so for me, that was a huge selling point, because I would not have been able to uproot and move to Tennessee, or even done a full hybrid in person, like actual physical in person, at a school like Vanderbilt. Up here, like I said, I live up in Plymouth, Mass. So, I might've been able to go to an MIT or something like that hybrid. But my kids are in their 20s to, my youngest is 15, 14. And then I have stepkids with my wife. We live here, and we're pretty well rooted in this community, and probably will be for at least another 10 years. So that would have put, if this was only available as an in-person option or not as a full online option, I probably wouldn't even have been able to apply, let alone consider this as a real option for at least 10 more years.
And I guess, like, kind of on that same note, when you were taking classes online in this program, I mean, and this is probably a question I think most students would have if they're thinking about doing an online program. Like, I guess, how did you go about creating a sense of community, for example, with your professors, with your classmates? I mean, kind of how does all that come together in a virtual setting?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think that is probably something that people really want to consider. Like I said, so 6 institutions for my undergrad, and many of them were online or hybrid. And that was in the days of, and I don't want to speak ill of it, but Blackboard, where you'd go in and you just do your 3 to 5 posts a week, and you had your set milestones that you had to make, and it was really hard to build camaraderie or teamwork or cohesion, and no synergy at all. The methodology and the model that Vanderbilt uses with not just the asynchronous kind of I call them video vignettes, where you can kind of watch the instructor and the professor. You have some ability to do some discussion posting. Some professors will ask you to do video uploads instead. But overall, ultimately, it's that 1 week, one class a week or one in-person lecture a week where the entire class is there, and you'll network with 15 to 20 people, maybe even 25 people in a class, all on video, just like this, where we're able to interact and read facial expressions and get to know each other really well. And then in the group projects, I have 3 or 4 classes, I think, Mirage, is that right? 3 or 4 classes where you're, in these major group projects, where in between those classes, you're just on whatever technology app it is, whether it's WhatsApp or GroupMe or any other text to chat methodologies where you're doing video conferences and you're really working together. So again, one of the strong selling points to Vanderbilt is not just the name and the prestige, but the networking that comes along with it. And, that was kind of mentioned day one, like, what do you think about our network? I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of why I'm calling you and applying. The model and the platform that this online community uses, where others may not be fully hybrid or fully immersed in that online technology, it really is a huge draw for this specific program.
Yeah, and I would say for me, I'm a really social person. So I definitely had a lot of nerves coming into the program with it being all in line, especially doing undergrad in person and being super involved in like campus activities and living on campus. So that's how I've always known like a college experience. But for me, I found like a lot of my nerves are really calmed, because the same way that in class you would have like in class like breakout sessions where you'd work on an assignment and then discuss it later, we do the same thing, just using an online technology. We get to go in breakout rooms and you get to know 2 or 3 people better and like work together and think together the same way you would kind of in a classroom like huddle. So that was really nice. And as well as Kayla said, just being sprung into group projects, you have each other's numbers, you're added to different group chats, you're video chatting, you're messaging each other about your work. And so that just forces a different type of relationship, which is really nice. I always say, like, you can meet someone even in a work setting and say hi, bye, and you might catch a cup of coffee, but getting to see how someone else thinks and works, that's really how you build a network, and how you build a relationship, which is what you hope. So to me, that was really exciting part of being online, is that I didn't really miss out on the same things that I did in person. So I enjoyed that. And a lot of the people that I started my cohort with, we started out in a group project together, and now we're friends. I'm going to their wedding, someone's wedding this weekend. So flying to Tennessee for that. Those type of relationships are even farther than I could have imagined, even if I was in a classroom. So.
Yeah, completely agree. You have, in 22 years of previous schooling, I have maybe 3 people that I still remember from my undergraduate, maybe, and that's, maybe because I met them in actual like hybrid, like in-person class. But I have easily 30 or 40 people that I'm now pretty well connected with through having met them through this program.
Well, and going to the, in terms of like the actual, generating outcomes from being in this type of program, you did mention networking, and I want to kind of highlight that a little bit, in terms of, being in this program, being at Vanderbilt, having the type of, just cohorts that we have in our programs, and then now really being able to establish those alumni relations. Tell me a little bit about how you've been able to utilize that for your own professional development.
I think with that one, the first thing I can say is like, for my undergraduate experience, I was only unknown to people in my engineering discipline, which meant the people in my discipline were in only a few industries. And so when I got to graduate school and it was like an engineering program that wasn't specific to, like, for example, my background is industrial. And now I got to learn about like what mechanical engineers do, what electrical engineers do, what computer scientists do, just so many different disciplines that I wouldn't be exposed to in an educational sense. So I got to hear a lot about their personal stories and professional stories. And that was exciting. And I don't really think like no two people in my cohort or even anyone I've interacted with at Vanderbilt work in the same company. So that's really good to know that, okay, I have a connection at Amazon, at Apple, at Boeing, or whatever. And I know, like, because we built that relationship and we can see, I guess, how smart and how capable everyone is in the program, that I would recommend anyone that I've met to work at my company, or connect them with someone in the technology industry if they were interested in. And I know they would do the same. So I think that's really the biggest door that's open for me, is that I know I'm not really stuck in the industry that I'm in, because I've met so many people who work in different parts. And I've also got to meet people that now I know I don't want to work in that industry. So it kind of helps weed that out for you and figure out where you want to go in the future.
Yeah. So for me, I agree with Mirage, again, but I never really had any intent on leaving my company or changing my position. So for me, internally within my company, having gone through and built up these, kind of achievements with my peer group, it did put me in a position within my own company to get some advancements and be more in a leadership role. But leveraging the network for me has been more, seeing the totality, the totalness of this kind of cross-cultural grouping, if you will. So as Mirage kind of alluded to, I can now talk to somebody, who I may know that works for Tesla, and somebody who works for, maybe a tire company, and kind of see over the horizon where those things may impact one another. You definitely, in the technology forecasting class, really get to kind of look over the horizon and see, maybe 15 to 20 years where things are going to be. And, I'm not saying that I didn't, also have colleagues be like, hey, if you're ever in my area and want a job, that's not something that happened. But, as I said, my whole plan and goal was really to stay right where I'm at geologically or geographically speaking, for at least the next 8 to 10 years. So for me, it was really more about networking the different business groups and less about networking for myself.
Okay, no, that's great. And you did highlight on the interdisciplinariness of the type of the cohort that you were part of. Can you tell me a little bit more about, in terms of actual like course content, like how did these different perspectives, interdisciplinary curriculum that that we have here at Vanderbilt, how does that really, in terms of your own development, professional development, future development, I guess, how does that all kind of go together in terms of what you want to do and how you want to, what goals you want to obtain in the next several years professionally?
I think the program does a really good job of providing a lot of structure with so much freedom, if that makes sense. So for example, like, you're meant to do like a technology outline, right? So where you come up with an idea and then you talk about all the different business elements and all the technical elements, but the idea is up to you. So what industry you want to do it in, whether it's an application or something that has to do with like civil engineering or whatever, you get to decide that. And so that's an exciting part of the program, where it's kind of like your minor. You get to choose your minor within every course, because they set it up for you in a way where you can come up with whatever it is you're really interested in. So for example, like Kaileif mentioned the forecasting class, I'm really passionate about IoT, so Internet of Things. And so I did a lot of my research on Internet of Things and a lot of my projects on Internet of Things technology. And so for me, I was able to focus in on something that's a big professional goal of mine. And I know that I can tell my current employer or my future employer, hey, like I've done a lot of research in this. This is something, I've written out business plans for. And just the ability to combine both like the technical aspect and the business aspect is a huge selling point, I think, for any employer.
Yeah, that's an awesome. I actually like that Mirage. Through the technology strategy writing course out there. So I actually also work as a grader or a teacher's assistant, professor's assistant, whatever you want to call it, with Vanderbilt now. I stayed on after I graduated, and that's actually the class that I help teach or co-teach. And that is a course in which you come together as a small group, and you hit the nail on the head with the interdisciplinarity of it. I had, when I wrote my paper with my small group, you kind of go in there and bid and say, hey, this is my idea. And so my idea was something with autonomy and underwater vessels because of what my background is. And very quickly, I had somebody who worked for a major company, Hilti Tools, and another person who was an engineering diver. And the three of us came together and wrote this paper on how to advance underwater technology to be a fully autonomous robot that can do all of these different, those 5 different functions that it could do underwater. And then how do we market it? How do we bring it to market? And then how do we plan to pivot that in a strategic setting to best leverage not just the technology, but the different industries and where those industries will be in 5 years or maybe 10 years from now. So I think Mirage, like I said, hit the nail on the head that's, it's just an amazing kind of opportunity to have all of these people with all of these cross disciplines come into the same team to kind of synergize and create a team. I say it to the students when they come in, during these classes that, I'm always so impressed by all of the different resumes of people that come in, because it's, it's like, the all-star team of, engineering, basically.
All right. Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that. And on that same topic, if a student's thinking of going into an engineering management program, I guess, talk a little bit about how well, the program does in terms of really combining, kind of the best aspects of engineering with the best aspects of business. And I think because I would imagine, there's students listening tonight that are probably thinking, well, they may have an engineering background, but why not just do an MBA if they want to kind of get the business aspect? So what would you tell them in terms of kind of, the engineering management, pitch, so to speak, when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I think I alluded to that earlier, that this really kind of hones in on that cross-cultural, right? So business anywhere is business. But if you don't have an expertise in engineering, you're not going to know all the niche kind of fields. It gets back to what we talked about with networking and the idea of camaraderie and synergy, that you need to have that kind of over-the-horizon aspect. So it's not just a business model, it's also an engineering future model. So things like, technology forecasting, engineering management and leadership, even logistics supply chain management. Like I have no background or experience in logistics supply chain management. But going through that class really sets you up for all of the things you don't know about how to run and operate a business, specific about, is it better to buy, 10 mil, 20 meter thick and wide steel over, something that may be a smaller, wider breadth of technology. So it gets into like I said, the really finite details of not just the business aspect of it, but also the engineering aspect of it.
Yeah, and I would definitely say, for me, I was kind of up in the air between an MBA and engineering management. I just didn't know which one I wanted to do. And like MBA is just so universal. So I really thought that was for me. But I'm so glad I chose this path, because one, it's interesting to me because there's still a technical aspect where I don't feel so far removed from the coursework, and I can actually apply it to what I've seen in the workforce and what I've seen in my like schooling. So that was really important to me, where I felt like, okay, I can apply all the theories that I've seen before, all the experiences to my actual coursework. And then two, I think just in every class, no matter if it was technical or more business, it had every single aspect of what it would be like working in our field. And I think with an MBA, it kind of shies away from that, where it's so general that sometimes there's a really hard aspect to be able to say, okay, how does this apply to me? Okay, how does this apply to where I want to be in the future? And with an engineering management program, it combines both elements. So, for example, like the class that Kaileif does TAing for, that one specifically is really exciting because not only do you get to do like the technical side of, like, for example, like doing the architecture for something, planning out if you're going to patent the technology or not. You're also going to see, okay, how can I market this? Okay, what's out there now? What does that look like? What's my business plan? What are my finances? So things that normally as an engineer you don't think about, you get to implement, but you still have to know the technical things. So for me, that was perfect because the way we're moving in our industry, there are a lot of cross-functional teams. So I know that I could apply my business teachings in an engineering role, and then I can move to a business role and still, use my engineering knowledge using this program.
I think one of the cool things that Mirage just brought up was the idea that you could patent, or potentially patent something. Those are opportunities that arose so much during this program that I didn't even realize was like an opportunity or an option when I first got into it. There's like I said with the technology forecasting, if you're interested in it and you do well enough on that paper, the professors will help you try to get that to some type of publication. So that you could be published in a periodical with that level of detail and scrutiny. The same is true with both the technology forecasting and the strategic technology writing course. That you can if you've got a unique enough idea and there's not an existing patent, they'll help you through that process as well.
Yeah, that's a great point that you both come up with. That really the technical skills, but yet having that business component is very key. And I think it's something in terms of making your own, just being marketable. I think, especially with an engineering background, it makes complete sense. So my other question is, and I'll actually ask I'll ask both of you a specific question, just, with regards to your own background. So Mirage recently was a finalist for Miss Arab USA, which, obviously is a huge deal. So Mirage, did you just want to maybe spend several minutes just talking to us a little bit about what that was like? How were you selected? And I guess, once you were given that, that platform, what, how did you want to utilize your voice to really, just be able to make changes and really just kind of, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So very out of my element. I like to think like I'm a really big nerd. So doing something that was completely like beauty related was very interesting. But I love the experience. So I am Arab, I'm Egyptian from origin. And so just in general, I find a hard time like seeing a lot of people like me, especially we don't fit in a lot of the big minority categories and we don't fit in the majority categories. So already there was always this like a little bit of identity crisis just moving throughout my whole life. And so being able to find a program or a pageant that really spoke to myself and who I am was really exciting. And outside of that, like it's hard to see women in tech and women in engineering fields. And even though things are changing, you still don't see the type of change you hope. It's even smaller to see Arabs and especially Arab women. And so that was something I really wanted to utilize, is just this background of women in STEM throughout my whole platform for Miss Arab USA. So for me, I had actually known about the pageant when I was little. I remember my sister telling me, and that was so exciting because I remember reading about the past winners and they were doctors and lawyers. And I was just like, wow, these women are beautiful and they're so successful. And I guess like growing up, you can either be one or the two. But it was exciting to see they have both and they're Arab as well. So it was just like a pipe dream. I never really thought anything of it. And then, as I started moving along, I decided, you know what, like, let me look back into this. And I went through the application process. Don't know how, but I made it all the way. So I ended up being in the top 15 and I competed in a national pageant. Really exciting. Met some amazing ladies who are all in different industries and who are really amazing and surprisingly super funny. But the most interesting part was it really gave us a platform. So since the moment we walked in, we were just constantly on cameras. There were video interviews. We had news stations coming. We had people requesting news articles about us. And so there was definitely this shining a light on us. And you really just wanted to make the most of it. So for me, I actually was awarded a patent earlier this year. And so that was a really big achievement because, I don't know, it's a patent. So I actually had my hometown, they wrote an article about me called From Patent to Pageant. So that was really exciting to really talk about my experience of being a woman in technology, getting awarded a patent, and then in the same year being able to compete in a national beauty pageant. So I really enjoyed it, and I definitely hope I encourage other young women, especially young Arab women, to pursue STEM, something I'm really passionate about. And of course, like competing Miss Arab USA, you do a lot of public speaking, a lot of communication. So I combine both of the things that I love, technology and communication.
I think that's a really neat experience. And talk about like networking opportunities. I mean, that's also a great place to really network and meet people. But yes, no, I mean, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that with the audience today. And then we have Kaileif, you've served in the Navy for many years, and I just want to learn a little bit, just hear a little bit about your experiences of what that's been like, and obviously all the years of service that you've given. Be nice to listen to that.
Yeah, so I came into the reserves as a reservist. A lot of people will come in and they'll do some active duty time and then they'll kind of transition into the reserves. But I actually came in as a reservist to start with and spent my entire career as a reservist. But in those 20 or so years, I've had a number of mobilizations in support of different contingency efforts. So cumulatively, I've been, away from my family instead of 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, which is what you kind of hear usually. I've been away from my family upwards of 6.5, 7 years at this point, cumulatively speaking. And, some of that's in CONUS and some of it's out CONUS, or in the continental U.S. versus out of the continental U.S. But I've had experiences to, fly around on maintenance. I'm a maintainer by trade, so I don't normally get on the airplane. But my background is all aviation, electrical, mechanical, avionics, things of that nature. So when you're looking at how do you couple being a civilian, having a civilian career, being a reservist and having a military career, and then trying to also be a parent and be a husband and be in school, that balance act becomes really, really difficult. And so, I've been, blessed in that a lot of the different schools and industries or places I've been have been really good at working with, if I have to go away on orders for a 2-week period, that I can preemptively do some work and then, post return do some work. And so, that's got kind of its own little nuance and unique skill set. But overall, I promoted in the Navy really, really quickly. And then I've been kind of the same rank and pay grade for a number of years. And so most of what I do nowadays is I get to be what they call the senior enlisted advisor in a lot of the different units I am in. And so what that means is whoever the commanding officer is, they have an enlisted advisor that works as part of their triad or part of their team to help make sure enlisted matters are cared about and cared for, and ensure that we, we're taking care of the whole team, the junior most people and things of that nature. And so I get to do a lot of mentoring and a lot of training with just, not just the junior enlisted, but also the junior officers through that process. That linked with, like I said, the ability to come into a school like Vanderbilt and have those networkings just compounded is really like an amazing sense of family. There was a point where I had to kind of like go away last minute, and one of my professors was like, "We'll be here when you get back." So they're very flexible and very open to the idea. It's not just being current reserves, but being in a veteran or having served in different contingency efforts. I do have a GI Bill that I was able to use. The post 9/11 GI Bill paid for almost all of my school here, which is, some of the friends in my cohort were like, wait, what? You're not taking out loans for your entire education? So that's a huge draw for me as a veteran that some of my colleagues at school didn't have, that opportunity. But the military services office was great. They were always apt to assist me in making sure that my paperwork is in a timely fashion and that I was able to get paid. And there's certain requirements, like you can't spend more than a certain dollar amount in a year. I actually was scheduled on the fast track, which should have been a 3-semester program. And I ended up having to take the summer and the fall off because I had overspent in the first year between my undergraduate and my master's degree. And the school totally worked with me. I was like, take the time off. It's more important that, you as a student feel taken care of and that you're part of the team than for us to get money this summer or this fall. So they were willing to work with me to take, like I said, those 2 semesters off and then re-up. I didn't even have to drop enrollment. It really was just taking a semester off, basically, or taking the summer off, basically, to make that happen and still do it within the confines of what the GI Bill allows.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, with your experience of, as you mentioned, like studying at the same time, working, raising a family, like I think you could like offer a class just in that, because I think there's just so many people that are in that situation that are, looking at really finding that balance. And so I think, thank you for sharing that. I had another question I wanted to ask, and this is more from an applicant's perspective. So if a prospective student were to say, okay, like, what are some things, or do you have any tips that you think that worked in the application in terms of making yourself stand out? I guess, what are some tips that you think you could give prospective students when it comes to the application process?
I think something that I heard a lot from people who were applying to graduate school was the fact that which I've seen, it's like a lot of the graduate school classes is a lot of discussion based. And in those discussions, it's not just about the coursework, it's about people's work experiences. So having something to contribute to the classroom besides just being a good student is really important. So I think just being able to touch on the fact that you can contribute if you were put into this program is really important. Because if you're just sitting there and listening, you'll feel like you're lacking something. So I think just being able to say, like, this is my background, these are my work experiences. I see that these are specific, based on what courses we have, these are specific courses, and I feel like I can tell my story about this and this and this, I think is really helpful, just because I think the caliber of students we have and their work experiences are what we gain knowledge in, right? So I think the type of students we end up accepting really help shape our knowledge. So it's not just about, okay, is this person worthy of learning from Vanderbilt? Are the other students worthy of learning from that person too? So I think really touching on if you can contribute to the classroom is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree with Mirage there, right? So it's the class is never just taught by the professor or the grader or the TA. It's taught by everybody that's attending the class. It's really more facilitated in most cases. And so, I said it earlier, like, I applied not thinking I had a lot to bring to the table. I applied, not feeling like my resume stood out or stacked up, and I still meet these students on a routine basis, and I'm like, man, how did I even get accepted? So I would say that the most important thing is to have some confidence and be able to speak to, again, just as Mirage said, what do you, not what is your career, what is your experience, what do you bring to the table that other people don't? And the answer is you bring yourself. So bring that as part of the overall, I don't want to say selling point, but I mean, ultimately that is, what is it that you bring to the table that you can then help to bring to other students, informing that networking and informing that education across the, next, whatever it is, year and a half, 2 years, depending on how long you decide to take.
Yeah, and I mean, this is personal, but I feel like talk to your friends, talk to your family, because I was like, I'm not gonna get in. I'm not even gonna waste my time. And I had people, no, you can do this, and talk me into it. And I spent a lot of time on my application and really trying to figure out, okay, how am I gonna sell my story? How am I gonna put all the accomplishments I've done in college and outside of work and in work into this application? And so just kind of taking the time to really reach into your network and see how you can present yourself is really important, because you'll be surprised that sometimes it's really how you explain your journey. None of us got here the same way, but we each have a really unique story to tell. We each have leadership experience, whether you've held a supervisory role or not. I guarantee you have some leadership experience that we're interested in. You have technical background, which is why you're going into this program, and then you have hopes and aspirations. And I think just kind of having a clear idea, and even not just for the application, but for your own personal preference, kind of knowing where you want to go in your future or how you want to use this degree to go in your future is really important. Because even if you get accepted, you want to approach each class like, okay, what can I take from this class to get to the goal where I want to be? So like for me, for example, I'm really interested in the product field. And yeah, I can understand the technology behind how we develop a product. Okay, but how do we market it? How do we sell it, right? Like those are things I have no clue on. And so within each class, I was trying to think of ways that I could apply those teachings into that future goal of mine. So really sitting and kind of having a come to self moment where you figure out where you want to be and where you've been so far is really important.
All right, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And when it comes to the program itself, can you tell us a little bit about, for example, like what was a memorable moment that you remember about the program? Or I guess what was your favorite memory from being in this program?
Man, that's a tough one. There's just, like I said, there's a lot of good memories, and those memories continue to be built, because it's not like we were there and then left. It's we were there and we built networks and we built relationships, and those relationships are going to continue through the whole process. But I really think, and I think that's probably why I like 6100, which is the technology strategy report writing class. I think I like it that much because it's a class where, like, you come in, my background and experience is really technical writing. They call me a cybersecurity engineer, but I'm a technical writer by trade. I look at documents, I review documents, I write documents on how to test things, and that's what I do for a living. And I came into this class. This was the first class I was in, and you build a paper between 8 and 10, maybe 12 pages per week in a small group of 3 to 4 individuals. That turns into a 75 to 90 page polished strategy document in just like 7 weeks. And that accomplishment is so beyond like me thinking that I could achieve that, or me and my small team could achieve that. It's just an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. And so I think that's, like I said, why I gravitate towards wanting to give back and kind of mentor students in that same capacity, because they're going to come in day one and they're going to be like, oh, what did I get myself into? And then by day, what is 54, 56, which is 7 weeks in, they're like, wow, you were right. We really accomplished this. And it's a publishable document. You could bring that to the CEO or CFO of any company, and in a 15-minute time frame, sell them on, hey, this is a new product. It's 10 to 15 years away, but it's marketable, and we need to grab that corner.
And I would say for me, we had a marketing class and I enjoyed it because it really brought out people's like fun side. Because you get to work in a group and like come up with an idea and then you have to market it. And a lot of us don't have that kind of background. So people were really funny with it, like the names of their products, just the way they did their PowerPoints, like how they became that like businessman or salesperson. So that was really exciting. And you definitely got to see a lot more lighter side of people. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed that.
My videos were ridiculous. I went out on a hike with my backpack, and we were trying to sell a vehicle that could bring packages out on the trail to people that were out on the trail for days at a time, and they were horrible videos, but yes, I enjoyed the marketing aspect of trying to pretend like I'm a salesman.
That's great to hear about your stories. And when it came to the application, like how important do you think it was to have had perfect like working experience coming into the application as opposed to somebody who may have just be wanting to apply right out of undergrad?
I think you can apply and I don't work in admissions, but I'm sure you'd still have a shot to get in. But I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice without having work experience just because of, like I said, the ability to contribute to the classroom. A lot of the times, like the knowledge that I learned in undergrad is all theory. And then when I got to the workplace, that was like my application. And then where I had questions, that was the gap where my master's like helped fill in that knowledge of, oh, that's where that comes from. Oh, that's the skill I need to learn. And so without having that experience, it does make it really difficult to kind of connect the dots. But I think you can still have a really great experience and just kind of know what to expect. But personally, I think getting at least even a year of work experience, you get to understand where everyone in the classroom is coming from in terms of, issues with their boss or coworkers or vendors or all these different types of relationships that sound so foreign when you're just a student.
Yeah, so I think I partially agree with the idea that the work experience does add to the classroom flair and experience overall. Like I said, it's kind of a really facilitated class environment, if you will. But the part that I disagree on is I think that looking through, I think my whole thing, like I said, it was 3 semesters, but it was 3 semesters over the course of just over a year because I had to take that semester and a half off. And some of the students that I learned from were literally they did their undergraduate and they came right into this program. And to me, where they may have lacked in the work experience, they definitely had a sense of stick-to-itiveness that I certainly didn't show in my 22 years of attempted undergrad. And they did bring stuff to the table. So I absolutely, when you're talking just specifically the application process and getting into the program, again, I go back to that idea, like don't count yourself out. Don't say that you're not capable of doing it. Apply for it. Let the school say, hey, if you had this, or this, you might be a little bit more competitive. But I really don't see that as a filibuster to being able to get into the program to begin with. And I absolutely think if you're open to learning, so one of the things I get to do with the Navy is mentor very senior officers. It's one of the last conversations they get to have before they become a commanding officer is to sit and chat with me about what it is that I believe makes you a good leader. Which, in civilian terms is be a good manager. And the answer I give them is maintain for your entire career the sense of teachability. The second that you feel you're no longer teachable, the second that you feel that you know everything there is to know about your job, your occupation, your career, whatever it is, maybe even your family or your relationship at home, that's when it's time to put yourself outside of your comfort zone and learn something new. I say it this way. I worked in corrections a number of years ago, and I worked in aviation most of my childhood growing up in the Navy. Consistency leads to complacency. Complacency leads to casualty. So if you're feeling too comfortable, you can become complacent, and that can be catastrophic in whatever area of life we're in. So definitely, like I said, put yourself outside of your comfort zone. And if you say no, it's 100% of the time going to be no. 100% of the questions that you don't ask are always no. But if you ask the question, you could be surprised like me and be like, whoa, how did I even get into this program?
Well, that's good advice. Lifelong learning. We are always constantly learning. That journey does not end. So I think very good point. Being part of, among the first, group of students who graduated from our online master's degree program in engineering, I guess looking to the future in terms of this market in general, online education, I guess, what is your kind of outlook on, the next several years? Is this something that you see continuing to grow, or is it, I guess, what are your kind of insights in terms of where you see this market going?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I definitely see a huge future in it. I think even before COVID, like you said, there was a little bit of a shift in just terms of accessibility. And now I think when COVID hit, it was just the idea that, hey, like it shouldn't really matter where I'm located. I will get the work done. I will get the schooling done. And that won't contribute, that shouldn't contribute to someone's ability to learn or to work. So I really see a huge future in it. And I think a lot more really prestigious schools will start to offer different programs. I know they've worked on a lot of different certification programs, but definitely more degree programs that are the same way, because I think a lot of schools are really missing out on some high caliber students just on the fact that they can't go to campus, or they can't transport and move their families or leave their jobs in the cities that they're in.
Absolutely agree. I think that this being online education is not going anywhere anytime soon. I think, as I said earlier, COVID gave us all something that I think it gave online institutions is the clout and the ability to say, look, we can learn, we can teach, and the geographic location of a student makes no difference. I had a class, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago. One of the students was in England, one of the students was in San Diego, and they were partners. And how they made that schedule work is a little difficult in my opinion, but they made it work and they did a really good job. And they're gonna, continue to have that relationship for a long, long time to come. But they wouldn't have had that relationship if it was, hey, you got to come to Tennessee or else you can't attend.
Good point. Accessibility. Yes. Thank you very much for sharing that. So I see we have several minutes left. And I just want to remind our viewers that we are taking questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature, send us a message, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So, given the fact that this program is online, did you have any opportunities, whether it be, just taking personal time to come here, or just any arrangements with the program where you're actually able to come visit campus, the city of Nashville? And if so, kind of what was your impression of the area? And it kind of, how was it like actually hearing about Vanderbilt and Nashville and then actually, coming here and seeing it for yourself?
So I've actually gone twice, and I'll just say I'm really jealous. I think Vanderbilt's so beautiful. Just even being on campus, I'm like, oh my God, this is my school. Like this would be like the hall that I would be studying in. Like I even went to, I think it was like a student union, like where people sit and study and eat. And I was just like, everyone was wearing Vanderbilt shirts, and it felt so nice because at least in Texas, there's not so many Vanderbilt people, or at least like openly wearing Vanderbilt clothes. So I felt very at home. So that was really exciting for me to see that. And Nashville's so much fun. I definitely in a whole nother life would have gone to Vanderbilt in undergrad and gotten to experience the whole experience. But I really enjoyed Vanderbilt. And I think had I thought better through it, I definitely would have spent at least a week there, gotten like an Airbnb or something, and just at least studied on campus a little bit, and even worked from home from the campus area. It's so beautiful, and you get access like everything. So I had my ID card. I got to get a physical Vanderbilt ID card. I had the app. I was able to access all the buildings. So I had just as much benefit as any normal student would.
Yeah, completely concur with Mirage on that. The first time I went was graduation, and in retrospect, I should have applied for student ID and gone down way earlier. Talking to some of my peer groups and some of the colleagues throughout our cohort, that lived more locally, like just like Mirage said, they got a student ID and they would go down and check out the library and they'd be just a regular student. So the fact that it's fully online doesn't mean that you lose the idea and the access to the rest of the school, that most traditional students would be able to have. And like I said, for me personally, if I had looked at or had enough foresight, I probably would have applied for that student ID earlier. And my wife absolutely loved it when we went down there. So I think that we probably would have been down as many times as possible.
All right, that's great. That's good to know. So we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to try to fit in another question. So what is something you wish you knew going into the program that you'd want to share with a prospective student? It could be something about the application process, something about just online education in general. What's something you wish you knew going in that you maybe didn't know prior? That, in other words, now that you do know from having been in the program.
I would say two things, and one has definitely been a theme we've talked about, is like, you can do it, which sounds so simple, but it is so doable as like a working professional, full-time professional, as people who have families and, they're entrepreneurs or whatever. They find the time to do it, and, take your chances, apply, because you really never know. And even if you don't get in, it's like, okay, what can you work on so you can get in next time? It helps you adjust. But the other thing I would really say is, and I knew Vanderbilt held weight, but it really held a lot more weight than I expected. Like when you were talking about like networking, it really struck a chord to me, like even internal networking, when you do introductions or you go to an event, everyone's, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm doing this is my role, but I'm also getting my master's at Vanderbilt. Oh my God, Vanderbilt. Wow. You should be so proud. Like everyone makes such a huge deal, whether it's like personally or professionally. They get so excited when they hear that you're studying at Vanderbilt, and they like stop you in your tracks, will meet you afterwards. Oh, tell me more about your program. Oh, that's so cool that you go to Vanderbilt. Have you been to campus yet? So I didn't realize how much prestige really came with it, especially when you're in it. You're like, oh, this is my everyday. But you forget that there's so much weight that comes into it in a professional setting, and that people really admire you or, kind of look up to you a little bit for getting a degree from Vanderbilt. So I really enjoyed that. And I think it made me stand out a lot of times when it came to those professional settings, because not everyone has a degree from Vanderbilt or a school of that nature. So it definitely gives you the one up that humbly you don't realize until you get into the situations.
If for me, they did such a great job, like kind of pre-briefing me as to what to expect. There just wasn't a whole lot that I went through this program. I was like, I wasn't planning for that. I will say, so my undergrad, I fast tracked and I overloaded my course and doubled up, and expected that since I took 4 and 5 classes a semester in my undergrad, that would be much like the same for workload in my graduate level program, and it's not. So I would say to be well aware that if you're going to overload, that it is an overloaded level of coursework. So just to be prepared for that coming in. But like I said, the staff did tell me it was going to be an extraordinary amount of work. I just didn't really believe them until that first class. I was like, what did I just sign up for? But it, as Mirage said, completely achievable. Just stick to it and have confidence in yourself.
Yeah, your professors really want to see you succeed, which is, I haven't seen that in any program as much as I have here. They will work with you. They will talk to you. Things come up professionally and personally, and they're willing to work with you to make sure you get your learnings out of it and you get your assignments done.
Excellent. And I see we have in our last minute, so I will fit in one last question. Final thoughts from both of you in terms of just, anything else that you just kind of want to leave the audience with as we conclude tonight.
I guess for me, I'm just really thankful and I'm sad my experience is over. So if you go to Vanderbilt, make the best of it because it goes by so fast. Really make sure you make good friends and take the most out of your coursework because I promise you, it will apply to whatever job you work in.
Yeah, and I would echo that, saying, whether your future is Vanderbilt or not, take the time and the initiative to just continuously develop yourselves, learn every day, put yourself in a position that thrusts you out of your own comfort zone. And if Vanderbilt's for you, man, it's an awesome experience. And as Mirage said, like, that's why I keep TAing. I just don't want to be done with it.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your experiences tonight with the audience, and a lot to think about, I would say, for somebody looking to go into the program. Obviously, a lot of really great, points that you made, and a lot of, overall, very great, really nice program. So I want to thank you both for your time. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and definitely stay in contact now as alums as the university, as being part of the university. Thanks again. Have a great evening and stay safe out there. All right. Thank you.